Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1119 for July 27th, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
What's above a dream job? I didn't even consider this as an actual thing, Mark. To be honest, so I feel very fortunate and hard work paid off. But yeah, very excited.
Marc Watson is the newly minted master whiskey maker for Highland Park, following Gordon Motion's retirement earlier this month. In one of his first interviews since his promotion, we'll talk with Marc about following in Gordon's footsteps, along with his history in whiskey and his plans for Highland Park going forward. That's just ahead on WhiskyCast In-Depth. I'll also have Behind the Label and much more. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast.
Hey, it's Gabriel from Dewar's Whiskey. Here's a quick tip. Whenever you're pouring great whiskey, especially something like Dewar's 12-year, don't overthink it. All you need is a few glasses and a couple of people worth sharing it with. The rest takes care of itself. Back in a bit.
Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Let's get started with the news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. President Trump met with European Union leaders this weekend during a trip to his Scottish golf resorts. The meeting resulted in a tentative trade agreement that imposes a 15% tariff on Irish whiskey and other European imports into the U.S. The deal comes ahead of Trump's self-imposed August 1st deadline for an agreement or much higher tariffs. U.S. bourbon and other American whiskeys will continue to be imported into Europe tariff-free, along with other U.S.-made goods. There is a caveat, though. The two sides agreed to 0 tariffs on, quote, certain agricultural products, and that could include alcoholic beverages. The details will be hammered out over the next few days. Trump also met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to discuss the free trade agreement the two reached earlier this year. That agreement limits the U.S. tariffs to 10% on Scotch whisky and other goods. Meanwhile, the UK and India have signed a free trade agreement with implications for the Scotch whisky industry. It lowers the current tariff of 150% down to 75% now, and to just 40% over the next 10 years. India is one of the largest export markets for Scotch now, despite the tariffs, and that's only sure to increase with a tariff cut. Also from India, Pernod Ricard has agreed to sell its Imperial Blue whiskey brand to Tilak Nagar Industries. The $485 million deal is the largest purchase of a whiskey brand by an Indian company on record. Imperial Blue is the third largest selling whiskey in India. Irish Distillers is selling two of the brands it inherited in Pernod Ricard's Castle Brands acquisition several years ago. Napog Castle and Clontarf are being sold to Cobblestone Brands for an undisclosed amount. Both brands never received much love under IDL's stewardship, and the Castle acquisition was primarily to get Jefferson's bourbon into Pernod Ricard's hands. Last week, we reported that Ireland's Killarney Brewing and Distilling had gone into examinership with an eye to saving the business. That process failed this week, and the distiller has now gone into receivership with more than 8 million euros in debt. More than 50 workers lost their jobs this past week. Gordon and MacPhail will be releasing the world's oldest single malt whiskey on record this fall. It's an 85-year-old Glenlivet single cask filled back in 1940. Just 125 decanters will be available. The decanter was designed by American architect Jing Yang, and decanter number 1 in the series will go on the auction block at Christie's in New York this November. Proceeds from the auction will go to the American Forests charity. The price has not been disclosed. Heaven Hill was named Distiller of the Year at this week's New Orleans Spirits Competition and took home 5 category wins, including Best Bottled in Bond Bourbon for Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. Balcones won among American single malts for its lineage single malt, and Uncle Nearest Single Barrel Batch 3633 was named the best American whiskey. The Busker Single Malt Irish Whiskey won Best International Whiskey honors. We have a link to the complete list of winners in the show notes for this episode at WhiskyCast.com. Buffalo Trace has filed a lawsuit against a John Doe for falsely impersonating master distiller Harlan Wheatley on social media. While claiming to be the real Wheatley, the imposter offered up rare bottles and unique experiences for sale. After Sazerac sent the imposter cease and desist letters, they replaced the pilfered photos of Wheatley on the account profiles with photos of Sippin' Corn blogger and Louisville attorney Brian Hara, then blocked Sazerac from viewing the accounts. Just a reminder to be careful who you're dealing with online. Meanwhile, Buffalo Trace has released 2 new Weller expressions. Weller Millennium No. 2 is a follow-up to last May's release of No. 1. It blends whiskeys from 2001, 2003, and 2006. And like the first release, it carries a $7,500 price tag. There's a more affordable Weller, too, and it carries the oldest age statement ever put on a Weller. The 18-year-old Weller is bottled at 90 proof and will be available in travel retail initially at New York's JFK Airport, Los Angeles LAX, and London's Heathrow Airport. The price tag is $499 a bottle. Diageo is releasing the rarest whiskey ever from the Old Stitzel Weller distillery in Louisville. The I.W. Harper 34-year-old was distilled back in 1989, and 4 barrels produced just 11 bottles. Only 5 will be sold through an auction at Sotheby's, with all of the proceeds going to the charity Native Son. The remaining 6 bottles will not be publicly available. The whiskey was created in collaboration with actor and philanthropist Coleman Domingo. And finally, a new analysis from Spirits Canada puts the Canadian boycott of bourbon and other American whiskeys into some perspective. Back in March, most Canadian provinces took American whiskeys off of their provincial liquor store shelves to protest U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports. From March 5th through the end of April, U.S. spirit sales in Canada were down by 66%, while Canadian spirit sales were off by 6.3%, and other imported spirit sales, such as Scotch Whisky, were down by 8.2%, for a total decline of 13%. The research found that while sales of Canadian spirits did increase in April, the gains did not make up for the loss of sales from the removal of U.S. products. Spirits Canada and the Distilled Spirits Council called on leaders of both countries to end their trade war and return to zero-tariff trade. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's open up the calendar and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Tickets are still available for Thursday night's Compass Box Blending Workshop at the Whiskey Exchange's London Bridge store. Once we get into August, the Whiskey Show Brisbane is August 9th in Brisbane, Australia, and the American Whiskey Show is on the 23rd in Sydney, Australia. The American Distilling Institute has its annual Craft Spirits Conference on August 25th and 26th in San Antonio, Texas. And once we get into September, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival is the weekend of September 5th through the 7th in Bardstown, Kentucky. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. Japanese whiskey began with Shinjiro Tori's vision to reflect the true nature and spirit of Japan. The House of Suntory was founded on these principles, guided by generations of craftsmanship that have transformed time, nature, and precision into something greater than the sum of its parts. Pure waters from the mountains of Hakushu, Mizunara oak shaped by decades of patience, a blending philosophy rooted in harmony. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of thinking, a quiet pursuit of balance and depth. From the layered complexity of Yamazaki to the crisp vibrancy of Hakushu and the elegant artistry of Hibiki, every whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from and the hands that shape it. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
This week on WhiskyCast In-Depth, we're joined by Highland Park's new master whiskey maker, Marc Watson. He spent the last 2 years as master blender for the Famous Grouse and Naked Malt whiskeys before Edrington sold them earlier this month to William Grant & Sons. He's taking over for Gordon Motion, who retired this month after 27 years with Highland Park and serving as master whiskey maker since 2008. And in one of Mark's first interviews since taking the new job, he joined me this week on a Zoom call. What does it mean to you to take over the role as master whiskey maker at Highland Park after Gordon Motion's 27 years there?
Yeah, firstly, let's address Gordon being there for so long. I think absolutely incredible career and incredible mentor for me for the last 6 months, but also 2 years of me being in Edrington. And then the first part of this question is incredible. I talk a little bit about like what's above a dream job. I didn't even consider this as an actual thing, Mark, to be honest. So I feel very fortunate and hard work paid off. But yeah, very excited.
Where do you take the brand from here?
That's an excellent question. I think for me, there's two parts to it. There is I really hope to keep that consistency that Gordon's and the other whiskey makers before him have really instilled in that brand. I mean, the 12, 15, and 18, that core range is ultimate whiskey, and ultimate whiskey for me. And then just adding my creativity around new product development. So that's that consistency, creativity, hopefully both.
You were master blender for the Famous Grouse and Naked Malt before. What's it like blending for a single malt as opposed to a blended Scotch?
Well, Highland Park is blended at natural color. So that has been a large portion of my work with Gordon, is learning the nuance of that. So when blending with Famous Grouse and Naked Malt, I've got a little bit of leeway with that. Whereas for Highland Park, it's all about natural color. It's all about making sure that we're consistent with that, which is an incredible, when I've been learning that, it's just incredible to watch.
You mentioned that Gordon was one of your mentors. Who were some of your other mentors?
Oh, I've been very fortunate in my 11 plus years in the industry to have some incredible mentors. I had Nick Ravenhall at the very beginning of my career, and then later on at Holyrood, and then David Brown when I was at Halewood, which is the last time we spoke, Mark, in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And David was an incredible mentor for me coming into whiskey making. And he put me in touch with Bob Delgarno, who had just left Edrington at the time and really helped me with whiskey making. So really count them as incredible ones. And then I had Stuart Nickerson before that. So I'm very fortunate.
What's your goal for Highland Park going forward?
Well, wonderful question. For me right now, my goal is to feel really settled in making incredibly high quality, consistent product, and then being able to bring my creativity in forms of the exciting things that we've got coming out. My goal is to really sort of, if I can emulate anybody's, I would love to emulate Gordon's career and the way that he's been able to shape Highland Park in that figurehead of consistency, but also, with these little dots of creativity sort of dropped in, and those, some of those absolute wondrous drams that he's been able to produce, like Dark Origins.
Do you have any new product development in mind?
Yes, there's a lot there's a lot in my mind. We'll see. We'll see how much comes out. We'll see in the next couple of months. I've been very fortunate to work with Gordon on some new product development over the last 6 months. So he's had some things formulated that we'll see in the next little while coming out, and they're incredible. And I'm not wanting to take any credit for them, but I've been very, very lucky that I've been on that journey with him to see his process, to see how he put things together. And then conversely, new product development never stops. So, he's taking the training wheels off, and the stuff that's coming out after that, has been my first things. And that's really exciting. It's terrifying, trepidation at the same time, but really exciting. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying that mix between the both.
Let's go through your CV. Where did you get started? How did you get started in this business?
Yeah, I did my master's in brewing and distilling. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was at Harriet Watt. And then I couldn't really decide where I was going to go, brewing and distilling wise. And I ended up in Finland working in import-export, which I think really I credit to being able to understand the commercial side of the business as a young whiskey maker, a young brewer distiller, to understand like how much things cost and how much things can sell for. I think that really helped me. And when I came back from that, I was doing some work with Nick Ravenhall at the time, and then I shot up to Shetland to work with Stuart Nickerson, working on gin projects up there, and then went from there to Eden Mill and worked with Paul Miller, and then from there to David Brown at Halewood. And I had an amazing time there building Bonington, and that's the last time we spoke was Bonington Distillery had just opened. It's now 5 years old. It's absolutely incredible. It's wild. And then I moved from there to Holyrood, and all the work that David Robertson and Ritelli had started doing on sort of toasted and roasted malts, and being able to put my creativity spade in the ground there and have a lot of fun. And then the Famous Grouse job came up, and I went for that job. I was out walking the dog. I didn't think I'd get it. HR phoned, and they said, we've got something to tell you. I was like, don't worry about it. I'm just out with the dog. You bet you do these things all the time. I'm not worried about it. Thank you very much for the time. It was really lovely to meet everybody. And they said, oh, no, you've got the job. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm out walking the dog. What do I have to do? So, 2 years of working with Famous Grouse. I've learned so much. It's, working with Laura Rampling and Gordon Motion, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've had all these mentors, but I don't think I've had a peer when I've been coming up, because there isn't that when you're in small startups. You don't have two, master distillers or two, master blenders. You just have one. And I got there, and I'm surrounded by peers who are just, they love to teach, and I've been so fortunate, being able to be in that place.
What's the key to being a good master blender?
Oh, the key to being a good master blender is being able to sort of trust your nose and be able to articulate your words in terms of flavor and scent, but also to have this attention to detail that is, just a dedication to attention to detail. Every whiskey maker that I've met has this eye for detail that I think makes it so easy for us to chat to each other, because we all talk about what we see as our eye for detail, and somebody else might have another opinion about that. And I'm like, oh, I better take that on board, because I've never thought of that like that before. So I think it's just that attention to detail and that sort of unmitigated desire to make incredibly quality products for people that you will never meet. I think there's a real dedication to making things amazing.
What did you think the first time you saw one of your whiskeys on the shelf?
Yeah, I was equal parts terrified and equal parts super proud. It's an incredible feeling. It's really hard to describe how good a feeling it is, but also you want people to like what you make. There's some part of you that it's good, and you hope that the other people like that too. But everything's subjective. People are subjective. Not everybody's going to like your stuff. And it took me a little while to to get over that. When it first gets on the shelf, you just want everybody to love it. And I think I put a lot of passion and attention to detail in what I do, and I hope people see that in the products I put out there.
What's the first product we're going to see with your name on it?
Oh, well, it was Naked Malt, and that's now changed hands.
I mean Highland Park.
But Highland Park wise, yeah, it'll be a little while away yet. MPD process for that is a little while off, so probably about October next year we'll see something that is being put together from me start to finish, but with Gordon, every step of the way behind me, just checking my working.
As you mentioned before, the 12, 15, and 18-year-old Highland Parks are sort of iconic. How do you maintain the quality of those whiskeys, knowing that your nose is different from Gordon's?
We have done 1,300 samples a month for the last 4 months on stock assessment together. And I've gone through we have all of them out on the bench. And we look at everything between 8 and 10 years old. Everything from every single cask at 8 to 10 years old. And we've gone, through 2015 together almost. And I've given them a grade, then he's given them a grade, and then we align ourselves from that. And the biggest thing for me is making sure that I'm as aligned with him as possible, because all the stock assessment he's done for the last X number of years, we don't want a big step change in 2025. So, I was really keen for the first couple of months for him to nose everything, put his grade on it, then me to nose everything. And then the last couple of months, it's been the other way around. I've been nosing everything, put my grade on it, and then he's been checking behind me, and we're just making sure we're aligned and agreed. And we have a process going forward where we're just gonna keep that checks up, not with Gordon, but with the other whiskey makers and departments, to make sure that we're all aligned on stock assessment.
Yeah, because you work with the other whiskey makers at the Macallan as well. How is that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of sensory work with the team up at Macallan whiskey making team, and with Laura at the Glenrothes, and with Kaya, who's our whiskey maker and sensory analyst. So she does a lot of work in the background, setting out loads of tetrad tests, making sure that all our references are aligned, making sure that all our new make references are aligned. She does a huge amount of work in the background, and I must give her credit for the amount of work that she does to make sure that Laura and I are aligned on stock assessment, to make sure that the Macallan whiskey making team and Laura and I are aligned on when we're doing tetrads and when we're doing different things in the office.
How are you going to define success 5 years from now?
That nobody's noticed a change in the core, and that everybody's excited about what's coming out next.
Thanks to Marc Watson of Highland Park for joining us this week on WhiskyCast In-Depth. The What I'm Tasting This Week department is taking the week off for family reasons. I've been helping my daughter Aria move into a new house and haven't had time to taste any whiskeys this week. The move has gone well, and I'll be back to tasting in the coming days. In the meantime, you can check out my tasting notes for nearly 3,900 different whiskeys at whiskycast.com.
Throughout the years, Dewar's has created some incredible whiskeys, but our new Dewar's 12-year-old, that one's a personal favorite. It's the kind of scotch that earns praise from the pros, but still feels right at home in the middle of a good night with friends. Every pour opens up with notes of vanilla, toffee, baking spice, and a smooth oak finish. It's rich, it's approachable, and it has a way of bringing people together. Whether it's around the table, the fireplace, or just wherever the night happens to take you. Look, the glasses may hold the whiskey, but the whiskey, that's what holds the moment. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. Lots of comments on last week's interview with Noah Rothbaum, author of the upcoming book, The Whiskey Bible. Christopher Glenn posted this in the WhiskyCast community app. Another great interview, and I've pre-ordered Mr. Rothbaum's book. And HRC posted this in the app as well. Another great interview, Mark. Sounds like a great read and reference book that I'm putting on my Christmas list. Like others, I was wondering about the name. Reasonable explanation, and doesn't sound much like Jim Murray's. On that note, Hugo Dart posted this in the app from Brazil. It sounds like a very interesting, well-researched book. I am glad you referred to The Elephant in the Room, which is the similarity to the name of that other book with misogynistic issues. Not everyone shares that view. April C., who lists herself on LinkedIn as one of the founders of the Nine Rivers Distillery Company in China, posted this comment on LinkedIn. Let's hope Noah got himself a politically correct proofreader, or he'll be the second author of a whiskey Bible to get lynched by a handful of desperate, attention-seeking, third-tier scribblers who use him as a stepping stone to recognition, a consistent work stream of paid gigs, and some made-up awards. Geez, who paid in your Cheerios? Other comments, this one from Roanne Parker of the Waiheke Whiskey Distillery in New Zealand. Mark, your consistency in publishing the WhiskyCast is a massive achievement. The amount of work that goes into a podcast of this quality is probably not appreciated even by fans like us. Thank you. Thank you, Roanne. And Noel Harity posted this in the app the other day. At 3:13 p.m. today on July 22nd, I finished the last of all 1,119 episodes of WhiskyCast. It's actually 1,118 as of last week. Averaging about 3 to 4 a day, I've gone through every last episode over the last year and a half. Now, WTF do I do? Well, try listening to them backwards and see if you catch any hidden messages. If you have a suggestion for Noel on how to spend his free time now, or anything else you'd like to share with whiskey lovers from around the world, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. What is proof? Basically, it's a way of measuring the alcoholic content of a bottle of whiskey. It's measured by using a hydrometer to gauge the specific gravity of the liquid compared to water. Whiskeys generally turn out to be less dense than water. With water on a scale of 1, whiskeys fall into the 0.93 to 0.96 range. Why the range? Well, the specific gravity varies according to the alcohol content, with higher strength whiskeys having a lower specific gravity than lower strength ones. By the way, when a bartender is making one of those fancy layered drinks, they're using specific gravity, because liquids with different specific gravities will separate into layers. If there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and of course a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store, or find us on social media. We're on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and the email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
There's something special about opening a bottle of Dewar's 12-year with the people who matter most. It brings out the stories, the laughter, and the kind of moments you don't plan, but never forget. Built on tradition, made for right now, and best when shared. Dewar's 12-year-old.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.